submarinal tension. Previously, I explained for you the fast stress in superficial spaces. We discussed the questions about superficial vessels, superficial maps. Now we come to, especially my subject, topographical anatomy, and now part by part, triangle by triangle, I will discuss together this neck region. As you remember, medial triangle, we split it into suprahyoid compartment and infrahyoid compartment. And in suprahyoid compartment, we describe two triangles, single submental and double submental. Now let's take one from them, for example, submental, and let's start to discuss the borders of it. Look to me. Submental triangle, don't write, please. I ask you, everything is written, believe me. You will open the slide. All my speech you will find inside of it. Just listen. Submental triangle directed by tip to upwards, by base to downwards. Base of this triangle, it is the body of your hyoid bone. Tip of this triangle, it is the mental protuberance of the mandible. From two sides, it is bordered by anterior bellies of the digastricus muscle. So once again, triangle has three borders. From right and left, it is anterior belly of the digastricus. From down, it is the base of your hyoid bone. Very well. We understand the borders. Next, what should we do? It is to describe the layers inside of this triangle. And skin, very unique. Skin in this region is very, very movable. Skin is thin, but skin doesn't have high elasticity. You know, that is the big problem, especially it will influence into your beauty. Then you will stand a little bit older than now. The first crinkles usually firstly will be formed in the neck region. Especially it is actual for the people, for example, who lose the bead and the skin folds is for primary in the neck region. Why? If the skin doesn't have elasticity, it cannot be constricted. If it cannot be constricted, it will form the crinkles, folds, and anything else. So remember about it. Layer number 2, it is, for the males, of course, layers. We shave this region. For both genders, we describe sweat and sebaceous glands, so we can see all possible inflammations which we discussed before. Subcutaneous fat tissue is greatly developed. That's why the persons can have double chins, double, triple, and more. Because fat can be accumulated inside of this triangle, and can make the protrusions. Inside of subcutaneous fatty tissue, we have superficial vessels and superficial nerves. I will especially attract your attention into the neurostructure, which we call arcus cervicalis superficialis, superficial cervical arch. How it forms? It has two origins, guys. From upwards, it is originated by its upper root from ramus collinearis facialis. You remember, it is the last branch of the pes anselinus major, which is descended down into the neck region. From downwards, by its inferior root, it is originated from cervical plexus, C1, C4. Then these two roots fuse to each other and they form the mixed nerve, which we call arcus cervicalis superficialis. It has a motor functions and the sensory functions. Sensory innervation of the skin is performed in this region. Motor innervation of platysma muscle. Platysma, it is the most superficial muscle which we have inside of it. Let's say, remember please, in the fatty tissue we have special neural structure which we call arcus cervicalis superficialis. Under the layer number 2 and inside of the layer number 2, we have layer number 3, which is superficial fascia. Superficial layer fascia located in the fat, it is split fat into superficial and deep layers, and it forms the capsule for the platysma muscle. By the way, platysma muscle completely cover all this triangle. I put my hands now in the places of right and left belly of the platysma, and you can see but midline of our neck region in inferior portions below hyoid bone, for the right and left platysma doesn't touch to each other. So remember, please, this triangle is completely covered by the platysma. Under the platysma first fascia, we have layer number 4, which we call second fascia of the region. And second fascia forms the capsules here for the muscles, which is located in this region. By the way, muscular layer here, we divide it into two sublayers, superficial muscles and deep muscles. In superficial muscles, we describe two muscles only, guys. This is the anterior belly of digastric muscle and the mylohyoid muscle. If you will touch now your hand into your submental triangle, you will palpate the diaphragm of oral cavity, which is formed by several muscles. The most superficial one, it is the mylohyoid. Mylohyoid muscle started from mylohyoid line, which is located in the inner surface of the mandible, and it is inserted to your hyoid bone. Let's say then it is constricted, your hyoid lifted to upwards. Let's say it is included in the swallowing action, because then you make the swallowing, your hyoid bone is changed its position. Strongly by midline of the neck, otherwise midline of this triangle, right and left mylohyoid muscles fuse to each other, and they forms the suture of the mylohyoid muscle. You can see it by white color. In the Latin we say raphe mylohyoidea. It's a raphe mylohyoidea. It is the junction of right and left mylohyoid muscle and formation of the aponeuros. Both these muscles superficially, you can see this is anterior belly of the digastricus. Behind of it, deep to it, you can see mylohyoid muscle. Both these muscles covered by the second fission. You can say me, why do these muscles we don't mention when we spoke about second fission? Because they belong to the oral cavity diaphragm, not so much to the neck region, much more for the oral cavity diaphragm. Remember about it. If I will change the slide, in the next one, by the way, here is shown the platysma muscle. You can see it now. But in this picture, you can see the sagittal section. And under the mylohyoid muscle, you can see two another muscles. It is the geniohyoid one and the genioglossus muscle. If you remember, genioglossus muscle belong to the muscles of the root of the tongue. And these three muscles, now look to me, it is the mylohyoid, geniohyoid, and genioglossus together forms the diaphragm of the oral cavity. Little bit laterally to them, there are another muscle, which is called the hyoglossus muscle. Let's say these four muscles, which I mentioned now for you, it is the geniohyoid, genioglossus, and hyoglossus. They belong to the deep muscles of our triangle. Let's say triangle has two superficial muscles, triangle has three deep muscles. Deep muscles doesn't cover by the second fission. Remember about it. Superficials cover, deep no. Last question which I want to give you, it is arterial supplement of the innervation. You know the submental artery, it is branch of the facial artery. It is originated inside of submandibular triangle, immediately in capsule of submandibular salivary gland. Then it passed from laterally to medially, from downwards to upwards. It is come to our triangle and supply everything which we have here. Nerve innervation, it is the nervus mylohyoideus, otherwise submental nerve, both nerves names is used. It is the branch of nervus alveolaris inferior. Before entering inside of the foramen mandibularis, canalis mandibularis, it gives the motor branch, which is come to our region. After this, it is pure sensory structure. It is innervated tooth, then by mental aperture, it is come to the mental region and innervated skin here. But the primary, it is mixed nerve. It's a motor branch of it, we call the mylohyoid one or submental one. It is originated before the nerve is entered to the foramen mandibularis. It is come to our region and it is supplied and superficial and deep muscles, except platysma, which is supplied by arcus cervicalis superficialis, which I said before. Write the name or just look to the slide. We come to the second triangle, which is called submandibular triangle. Again, please don't write, just look to it. Submandibular triangle, it is double triangle. If previous one is single one, this one is double triangle. Borders I can simply modulate it by my fingers. Anteriorly, interior belly of the gastricus, posteriorly, posterior belly of the gastricus, and superiorly, inferior margin of the mandible, mainly. Layers of the triangle, skin is absolutely same to the previous region. Again, very movable, again, no elastic, again, covered by the hairs, by the males, again, contains sweat and sebaceous gland. Same for subcutaneous fatty tissue. Greatly developed layer. So here we can have accumulation of the fat. Again, we have the same arcus cervicalis superficialis. Again, we have same first feature, which is for the capsule for platysma, but platysma doesn't cover the lateral and posterior portion of this triangle. Lateral and posterior portion doesn't have platysma. Again, I put my hands, and you can see that my hand doesn't cover the most posterior portion of this triangle. All other parts of the triangle covered by the platysma. Remember about it. Let's continue. Layer number 4, it is the second feature. By the way, in the fatty tissue, don't forget that we have superficial veins. Yeah, it is primary external jugular vein, which is primarily located between the first and between the second fissure. Then you remember it is descending to down. By the way, it is projected by imaginary line, which is connected angle of your mandible with midpoint of your clavicle. So imagine this imaginary line, uppermost portion of it will be exactly immediately inside of submandibular triangle. Finally, remember, it is entering inside of supraclavicular space, then it is perforating third fissure, fifth fissure, and drain into the subclavian vein, or inside of the Pyragos venous angle. Very well, let's continue. Second fissure, split it into 2 layers. It is covered from all sides, the submandibular salivary gland, and forms the capsule for this submandibular salivary gland, which we call saccus cytosio-mandibularis. As you remember, except the gland, it contained 3 groups of the lymphatic nodes, anterior, posterior, inferior, and it is contained the facial vessels. Facial being located in front of the gland, facial artery located behind, and inside of the gland it exactly gives submental branch, which we described in the previous triangle, which has come to the submental triangle and make the supplement of it. By the way, gland has communication, space no. Gland is communicated by the oral cavity. Yeah? You remember, below the tongue, it is open, yeah, in the protrusion of the mucous membrane, but it is communication of the duct. It is not the communication of the space. Space doesn't have communication. Duct is communicated, gland is communicated by its duct with the oral cavity, but not the gland. But not the, space. Space doesn't have communication. Space is closed. Idea is understandable for you. Very well, let's continue. As you understand, deeper we have deep muscles. And now write the name of the diagram. It is the Pyragos triangle. Pyragos triangle. Pyragos triangle. And let's draw it together. Firstly, let's draw, then I will explain for you what the practical meaning and how we use it. From upwards, please draw the inferior margin of the mandible with the masculine process. From downwards, draw the hyoid bone. Of course, really, it's not so far from the jaw, but I make the schematical picture. You have to show all these structures. And draw, please, the bellies of the digastricus muscle. By the leg, obliquely located lines. Show please muscle number 1, which we call mylohyoid muscle. You remember it is covered in the previous triangle, and this triangle is also covered, but here it is described like the deep muscle of the triangle. Superficial muscles is 2. Remember please, it is posterior belly of and posterior and anterior bellies of the gastricus muscle and stylohyoid muscle, which is from styloid process come to the hyoid bone. It's located here. This is stylohyoid. There's a stylohyoid together with digastricus muscle. It is superficial muscle of this triangle. Mylohyoid, it is deep muscle. In previous triangle, it is superficial, as you remember. Now look here, please. Mylohyoid muscle doesn't cover all triangle. Approximately 2-3 centimeters in front of the angle of the mandible, it is finished. There's a posterior portion of our triangle doesn't cover by mylohyoid muscle. Is it understandable for you? Very well. Now again, let's change the color. If I don't mistake, I have the green one here. Yes. And by green one now, I draw the next muscle, deep muscle, which has more horizontal located fibers, which is located deep to the mylohyoid one. I think you remember how we call it. We call it hyoglossus. Hyoglossus, muscle number 2. In previous picture I show it for you. It's located more laterally, yeah, to the previously located. Hyoglossus muscle. By the way, hyoglossus cover all these triangle under of mille-ileus muscle. And it's also involving formation of the diaphragm of the oral cavity. Let's continue. Now look please to me. From up to down, I descended one loop-shaped structure which is come to the gap between these two muscles, mylohyoid and the hyoglossus, and pass between them and goes to the oral cavity. This is structure number 3, in our picture. We call it nervus hypoglossus. As you remember, it is the 12th cranial nerve. By the same name, canal is hypoglossus, which is located near the condyles of the occipital bone. It is the leaf, the cranial cavity. Then it is descending up to our triangle and pass between two mentioned muscles, between mylohyoid one and the hyoglossus one, goes inside of the oral cavity and make here the innervation of the tongue, primary mainly. Yeah, as you remember. 1 minute now, traction into the picture, please. It's greatly visible triangle, which is triangle E now in this picture. And we call this triangle of Pirogov. What the borders of this triangle? From upwards, it is structure number 3. From downwards, it is posterior belly of the gastricus, red structure. From in front, it is the posterior margin of mylohyoid muscle. That's all structures which is formed the Pirogov triangle is greatly visible in this picture. Once again, upwards it is nervus hypoglossus, downwards it is posterior belly of the gastricus, and from in front it is mylohyoid muscle, posterior margin of it. Now look please to picture. Immediately under the black line I draw the blue line. Again inside of this triangle. Blue line also pass between these two mentioned muscles and go to the oral cavity. And this blue line will be structure number 4 in our picture, which we call the lingual vein. Vena lingualis, lingual vein. It is draining the internal jugular vein. It is draining the blood from the liver or tongue. And it is located inside of the Pirogov triangle, little bit below the hypoglossus nerve. If it is ununderstandable for you, tell me, I will repeat once again. Inside of the triangle, under the nerve, we have the vessel, which is called the lingual vein. Lingual vein between two mentioned muscles, mylohyoid and hyoglossus, goes into the oral cavity and make the drainage of, not goes, it's come, yeah? It's generally, because veins is come from distally to proximal. But anyhow, it is come from oral cavity and drain the tongue inside of it. Can I continue? Thank you very much. Here is the artery here. The artery you cannot find in this triangle. You can find under of this triangle. As I look here, please, in the level of this vein, I draw now interactive line, red interactive line. And it will be in our picture structure number 5, and we call it lingual artery. Lingual artery, as you remember, it is the branch of the external carotid artery. Little after then I will explain for you carotid triangle. I will mention this artery once again because it is located inside of carotid triangle. It's originating inside of the carotid triangle. 1 minute attention to me. How we can open this artery? Simply, if I will split green muscle, hyoglossus muscle, along the fibers, immediately under this muscle, in the level of the vein, I will find the lingual artery. So once again, lingual artery inside of the Pirogov triangle located immediately behind of musculus hyoglossus by position of lingual vein. That is understandable for you. I think it's more than simple. Open the brackets and try it, please. That's why Pirogov triangle is necessary from surgical point of the view to make a ligation in distance of lingual artery. Ligation in distance, it is ligation outside of the wound, as you remember. Let's say if you know the Pirogov triangle borders and layers, you can easily find here the lingual artery and you can ligate it. 1 minute attention to me. You can ask me, but why in case of bleeding from the tongue, we need the ligation in distance? Two main causes. Cause number one, tongue is covered by the mucus. It is not so simple to apply the clip on the tissue of it. And point number two, which is much more serious, inside of the tongue, lingual artery gives 100 and 1,000 branches. Let's say then there are bleeding, generally you see surface bleeding, not a pointer bleeding. It's very hard to be arrested inside of the wound. Say two places we use to arrest it outside of the wound. One, it is the Pirogov triangle. Second, it is carotid triangle, place of the origin of the lingual artery. Pirogov one is better. Why? Because in carotid triangle there are huge amount of another vessels which you can damage. Inside of the Pirogov we have only lingual artery and lingual vein, nothing more. By the way, then you ligate it artery, much more better if you will ligate the vein also. I say it is the open rule. Then you decrease arterial supply, not you should decrease of the vessels then. If for artery you apply 3 ligatures, for the vein you apply only 2, one in distal. And then of course you cut these 2 vessels to make the desensitization. Is it understandable for you? Do you have any questions? If no, write the name of next triangle. That is the carotid triangle. Now, attract your attention to this picture by the violet color. It is greatly visible. It is medial triangle of the neck, but it's belong to infrahyoid portion. Yeah, if you remember, suprahyoid have these 2 triangles which I mentioned before, submental and submandibular. Infrahyoid has the carotid and omotracheal triangle. Both we will discuss today. Borders of the carotid triangle. Now look to me. From upwards, it is posterior belly of the gastricus. You see? From downwards, it is anterior margin of SCM muscle. From the backside, sorry. And from downwards, it is superior belly of omohyoid muscle. Once again, upper border, it is posterior belly of the gastricus. Lower border, it is superior belly of omohyoid muscle. And posteriorly, it is anterior margin of sternocleidomastoid muscle. I think it is very easy, very visible. Look, 1, 2, and 3. Otherwise, this muscle you can call medial, this one you can call lateral, or this you can call inferior, this you can call posterior. Nothing will not be changed, believe me. Very well. We understand the borders. Now let's speak about layers. Listen, me, don't write, please. Skin. Now 1 minute attention to me. The more from up you descend it to down, the more skin will stand thinner. In upper compartments, skin is thicker. In the lower compartments, it is thinner. But again, it has movement, but it doesn't have high elasticity. Let's say longer lines here is not good developed because we don't have so much elastic fibers inside of the skin. This is important from cosmetological point of the view. Again, I say you, we can have crinkles, we can have folds inside of this region. Fatty tissue. If in upper 2 triangles, I say fat is great developed, here no. Let's say instead of protrusion, usually you see depressions in this region. Let's say comparable with upper located, I don't say that fat is bad developed. I say comparable with upper compartment, it is developed not so good. But of course, if there are very big fatty person, of course here we will have big accumulation of the fat. Inside of fatty tissue, again, we have superficial tissue. Again, it is formed the capsule for platysma. Again, platysma completely covered our triangle, like for submental one. In the uppermost portion of our triangle, we will have the most terminal part of arcus cervicalis superficialis, which is again supply the skin, and which is again supply the platysma muscle, which is located inside of this triangle. Under the superficial fissure, we have the second fissure of the neck. And what is important? Now imagine that he is the SCM muscle. As I say, your anterior margin of the SCM will form the posterior border of our triangle. And we know that he is covered by second fissure. And we know that second fissure forms for him not only capsule, but also the species, which we call Spatium sternocleidomastoidea osteoid. This is one of non-connected species of the neck. And what is important, guys? This splitting of second fissure into two layers happened not immediately near his margin, but approximately one finger in front and one finger behind of him. I think you don't understand what I tell you. Now hold your hand like this. Friend, that is not for yourself. You do it to show for your friends. A little bit higher, great. His hand, it is SCM muscle. My hands, it is the second fissure. It's like I can split it now into two layers immediately near of his margin, or a little bit far from him. We have the second situation. Why it is important? Thank you very much. Because if you will make incision in posterior portions of carotid triangle along the SCM muscle, you will enter inside of the capsule. Because again, I say, it's so simple to find SCM. This is my SCM. Is it visible for you? Approximately one finger in front of it and one finger behind of it. We will have split it, second fissure into two layers. Let's say, don't think that this speaks you have strongly only SCM region. No. You have it also partly in carotid triangle, partly in the lateral triangle of the neck. Yeah? From upwards, omotrapezoid. From downwards, it is omoclavicular. Idea is understandable for you or no? That is very important. Next our meeting, then I will explain for you surgeries. You will see so important knowledge of this, because then you make incision inside of carotid triangle along the anterior margin of SCM. You enter in its capsule. You don't have just one layer of second fissure and go deeper, but you enter in the capsule of the SCM muscle. That is very important to understand and recognize. What is this? You say